sing a song from the Titanic musical until people come back.
Okay.
Because people might not rejoin.
Yeah, they might not.
Hi, but people are rejoining.
I will be a proper person. People will look up to me. What a girl, that girl McGowan. Katie, Violet, Maud, Marie. There's enough people back.
No, keep singing.
I aspire to heights of glory, to the new world that can be. In that grandest nation I'll stand tall, which my highest hopes of all. Okay, that's the intro to Ladies'
The song is a lot sadder knowing that everyone in Belfast basically died.
Yeah, a lot of people in Belfast. I think I remember seeing a picture once, and if anybody knows what this picture is, I'm always trying to find it. I believe it was a black and white photo of all of the orphans, or all the children who lost a father during it. Or it was all the children and widows who lost a husband or a father from the Titanic, and they're all in one picture. It's like wild.
Look at all of you who came back. I'm so
look at all you
obsessed
guys.
with every
Guys,
single
this is
one of you guys.
amazing. I'm so amazed by you. I hate to say
I'm gonna ring the bell
this.
for you guys.
We're gonna ring the bell.
It's a good bell.
It's a good bell. So, I'm interested to see who lasts the longest. Not to challenge you. Go to bed if you need to go to bed.
I'm up.
We all need to stay.
I'm a
We
little
all
hyper.
need to stay rested. This is a good time to stay not sick. So please go to bed if you need to go to bed. But I'll be here until there's like pretty much nobody left. So this sucks.
Sad.
This sucks because people who were being funny in the comments are now just texting you directly.
Well, because
Anyway.
they know you won't let me read what they're saying, and they're being funny.
I know. Back to the coal
If you don't
fire.
have my cell phone number, here it is. Or message me on Facebook.
Or if you guys have questions and we're not seeing them,
DM. You know what?
just
Because it's my phone. I can't use my phone.
send me a message on Instagram.
But they're watching this, so then they would have to leave the live.
Oh, okay. If you can go to Facebook and find me on Facebook, maybe.
Or me.
Or Katie. I'm James Penga, James Penca. I have some messages already.
I'm Katie Jo. Kitiejo.
Josh Hillinger sent me a message.
Tell more facts.
I'll read that in a minute.
People are leaving.
Sorry, people are leaving. No! Okay, so coal fire story. So the coal fire obviously didn't sink the Titanic. An iceberg did. Whoever wrote that is an idiot. And the reason he says this is because he found pictures, previously unseen pictures of the Titanic, where there's a mark on the hull. And the mark was made by a coal fire that no one knew about. And that is why the iceberg hit there and the steel was weakened, and so it sank.
I believe it.
Number one, the smudge on the hull is a smudge on the photo. The other photos taken that day, there isn't a smudge, you idiot. Or it's like a reflection off the water. It's not a smudge. Two, a smudge above the waterline made the damage below the waterline worse. That makes no damn sense. The coal fire that no one knew about, we knew about the coal fire while it was still burning. It was very common knowledge that
Isn't coal supposed to catch on fire?
coal fires
isn't that
are
its thing?
yes, coal fires are very common. And the coal fire on the Titanic was very well known around the ship that there was a coal fire going on. And the basic way to deal with a coal fire is to basically let it burn. And so one of the things you can do is move all the coal out of that bunker so that way there's less to burn, and then it goes out on its own. And that's what they did. So they moved all of the coal in that bunker to the left side, to the port side of the ship. What that resulted in is the ship through the entire voyage, and this is something that Lawrence Beasley, for those of you who've been with us since the beginning, Lawrence Beasley was that science teacher who was very observant. He noticed that...
Poppy is like falling off.
She is not on my...
She's so
you can't really
dead asleep.
see it, but She's like asleep and not even on
She was
my
like
lap.
happily on his lap.
So he was Lawrence Beasley noticed that the ship was sailing at a list. It was slightly, what's that?
Someone said use the Q&A function for live questions. Oh my god, we've been getting so many.
Oh my god, you guys.
Someone said nice pics.
Swap conspiracy. We talked about that briefly. I can
Oh wait,
touch
these are
more.
from before. How do we do the live Q&A?
Live Q&A.
Turn off request. No.
Oh, Jasmine was watching. That's
Oh.
nice.
These feel like 2 minutes ago. Oh, okay.
So these are recent.
James, who have you played in the musical?
Oh, that's cool. I played Officer Lighthauler the first time, as well as a third-class passenger. Me and my friend Trey, we traded parts from time to time. Also, we can do this, I guess.
Wow. Vertical for the first time.
Vertical, guys. We're
Huge
upright.
for us.
So I played Lighthauler. Then at my college at BW, we did, around the 100th anniversary, we did Titanic at my school, and I played Thomas Andrews and served as the show's, the production's historian, which was really sweet. And then on the 100th...
Keep talking.
At the 100th, on the literal 100th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, which was a day I had waited my whole life for, really. I did a production of Titanic the musical with the Akron Symphony. It was a one night only, April 14th, 2012, where I played Thomas Andrews and served as historian as well. And I cried a lot because that was a big moment. So those were the three characters I've played, and I guess I would want to play Thomas Andrews again. I just need to get those vocal cords going because that is a tough sing. For those of you who saw me do it, I couldn't sing it. So, what else we got?
So the whole boat leaned to the left the whole journey, and everyone thought that was just fine?
Yeah. So it was.
Also, thank you to Tucker for pointing out that we should use this live Q&A thing. I'm not good at this. And
this is great. This is awesome. So, I should finish the story anyway. So the ship was sailing at a slight list. It wasn't very noticeable. Like I said, Lawrence Beasley seems to be one of the only people who noticed that the ship was sailing at a tilt. So the reason it was because all the coal from the coal fire was moved to the port side of the ship, and so it made it a little heavier. And then the Titanic hit an iceberg on the starboard side of the ship and filled with water. And as it sank, it sort of leveled out. And so that's what's so wild about the sinking of the Titanic is everything worked out perfectly. If the Titanic sank normally, it would have rolled over like all ships do. All ships roll over and sink. They're not meant to be filled with water, so they roll over. But that wouldn't have been exciting because then everybody would have just like died quicker and whatnot. So with the Titanic, with the coal being all moved to one side of the ship, it allowed the ship to sink directly straight down. I mean, it sank with a list for sure, but the coal fire actually made the ship last longer. So to that Titanic historian or expert who found one photo, a black and white photo, and decided to make clickbait artists lose their mind for the next 10 years. And now I have to read that article every week because I don't read it every week, but I get it every week because people send it to me like, hey, have you heard of this? It's just, the Titanic is I would argue that there's more clickbait about the Titanic than any other topic. And the coal fire just made it worse. But the coal fire actually helped the ship last longer. Okay, next question. Yes.
This one is, so Allie asked this, can you speak at all to the experiences of the children on board, but also Megan Rusky wanted to know, her feed skipped, and she wanted to know what happened to the widows and the orphans.
Right, I was mentioning earlier that I believe I saw a photo somewhere once, and I've never been able to find it since, of all of the orphans and widows in the city of Belfast, all in one group photo, and they're all dressed in black, if I remember correctly. Because as I mentioned earlier, the city of Belfast, it can be argued that on April 15th, when everybody woke up to the news of the Titanic, every single person in Belfast lost a family member because everybody knew somebody. If it wasn't your father or your brother or your uncle, the crew was just filled with Belfast men. And so the city was absolutely torn apart by the wreck. So the orphans and the widows. I believe they posed for some picture, but I might be making that up. So if you can find it, I've tried to find it. Read them for film. That's good. The experience of the children on the board. So there's a lot of, I've got a really sad story about a child. I don't know if I want to tell it though.
You have to. You can't. See, you keep trying to do this all night. You say shit like, I have a crazy story, but I won't tell it. This is
a really sad story.
You have to tell us.
Before I get to it, from what I understand, children had a great time on the ship. I believe there was a playroom somewhere on the ship. But there were games. There were games to play. And
one of the few pictures of the Titanic is of a kid playing.
Babe, I'm so proud of you. One of the most famous pictures, because guys, if you've ever seen a picture of the Titanic, like a real black and white photo, it's usually not the Titanic. It's usually the Olympic. They looked almost identical. And so the reason that is because the Titanic sank so quick, there were no pictures of it, really. Any pictures that were taken went down with the ship. But one guy, Father Brown was his name, he had a camera on the ship, and he got off at Cherbourg, I believe, or maybe Queenstown. And so he got off before the ship
So he rode
sank.
it for like one stop?
Yeah, and a couple people did. One guy actually...
That's like riding the subway from 34th Street to Times Square.
I mean, not really.
And then between Times Square and 110th Street, the train explodes.
I feel like it's more like riding it from 125th to Times Square, and then it goes on to Coney Island. It's a pretty far distance.
My metaphor was good enough.
One passenger actually rode the ship from Belfast to Southampton. He's the only passenger who was on the ship for the first part of the journey. Anyway, what was I saying? So there's only like 6 or 7 photos on board the actual Titanic. And one of them is of a young boy, I believe his name is Thomas Spedden, and he has a top, and he's spinning a top. And his father and grandfather, I believe, are like looking on. And in the movie Titanic, Jack, when he sneaks up to first class and steals a coat to go to get Rose, right before he gets yelled at and all that, he walks by a boy spinning a top. So they recreated that photo in the movie, which is very cool.
Very cool.
So kids had a good time. There is one girl who did not have a good time. So her last name is Allison. I don't remember her name. But the Allison family had a very tragic experience aboard the Titanic. The Allison family consisted of a mother, a father, I believe like maybe 3 children, and a maid. The maid was mostly in charge of taking care of their like 6-month-old baby. And when the ship hit the iceberg, there's a bunch of commotion. The maid picked up the 6-month-old baby and went out on deck to see what happened. While she's out there, she's put in a lifeboat, sort of like get in, and she gets in, and the lifeboat launches. The rest of the Allison family looks for their child for the entire evening, and all of them did not survive.
They don't get on the boats because they're looking for the baby.
They're not going to get off the boat without their child.
Fuck.
And they're looking for the maid with the baby. And I'll look up how old she was, but she is the only first-class child that passed away in the sinking. I want to say she was 4.
Not the little rich girl.
Yeah, I forget how old she was, but she's the only...
but the maid and the baby survived, right?
Yep. Let's
Joe Boover's
see.
here.
Joe Booves.
Hi, Joe. Welcome to the after party.
Hudson Trevor Allison was a year old at the time, but his sister, who was 3.
May 7th is his birthday?
4.
4 days after mine. A lot of people on the Titanic with birthdays close to mine.
So she was 3 years old. Her name was Helen Lorraine Allison. She was the only first-class child to pass away because her family could not find her brother, her 1-year-old brother.
That's very sad.
Someone just asked if that kid's still alive. No.
Allison asked that question, and then the answer was so sad.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry. So yeah, children had it pretty good, especially if you remember that a child in 1912 terms is 12 years old and younger. If you're 13, you are considered a young man or a young woman. And so if you're 12 and under, you did great because you probably lived. Unless, like, you know, if you're in third class, like a lot of children in third class did not live because
she
their
did her
parents
job and saved the baby. Yes. No, I was literally,
Yeah.
Jordan, I was going to say, shout out to the babysitter.
Yeah. Shout out to the
Who was the only one who did the right thing, which was get on a fucking lifeboat.
Yeah.
Because childcare.
But to answer a question that
providers
someone
don't
said,
fuck
is
around.
that kid still alive? All of the survivors of the Titanic have since passed away. The last one was Melvina Dean. She was 2 months old. She was the youngest person on the Titanic. She passed away a couple years ago. I think maybe like 10 years ago by now. I think she's been passed away for quite a while. But so there are no more survivors of the Titanic, which is pretty significant because that's.
Gilly wants to know if the ship hit head on, would it have?
Oh, that's
been
a big
okay?
thing that people say, that if they would have just hit the iceberg head on, it would have survived. There's no real way of knowing. I suppose, according to the whole watertight compartment thing, math on paper it would. But the thing is, no one in their right mind would have done that. And so many people would have died in the collision, I imagine. Just the whole ship coming to a stop. Just the crewmen down below would get thrown. It would have been quite a mishap. Oh my God. I'm so excited for what you guys are about to see. But yeah, so it really was... thank you, Broadway, for me. So
Matt just sent us something
yes,
that
Matt.
you guys really, if you've made it this far, you deserve to see this.
Yes. So to finish that question, possibly, but I can't imagine any sailor in their right mind going, let's just hit head on. So, yeah. So there is a lot of Titanic content out there.
Okay, there's a lot of Titanic
A lot
content.
of it is bad, and this is
This movie,
the worst. And then we'll get back to Titanic
described
history.
as the person who was kind enough to put this on YouTube as by Italian director Camillo Tedeschi. It's a Titanic animated children's film that tackles such delicate subjects as maritime disaster and the loss of over 1,500 lives with a party time song. Now, if you've ever seen An American Tale, the Steven Spielberg film about, immigrating to America, and then in the famous sequel, Vival Goes West, then, Manifest Destiny, you can tell very much so that is what they were going for here. Now, this is a very iconic number. It is occurring in the cargo hold of the ship. And now you may recall that James said that there were dogs on board.
Yeah.
And we're going to meet one of those dogs right now. Everyone, please enjoy.
You know there's something you should know, so I'm gonna tell you so. Don't sweat it, forget it, enjoy the show. Working all day, now it's time to unwind. Kick back, relax, take a load off your mind. I'll be busting the moves and I'll be busting the rhymes. We'll be busting up laughing cause it's party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time.
Oh boy.
Party time, it's party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time. Party time, it's party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time.
Obviously an homage to not only Tom and Jerry, but Little Mermaid.
It's party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time. Just leave your troubles at the door, leave your worries behind, leave the rest up to me, you're gonna make it fine. I'll be busting the moves and I'll be busting the rhymes, we'll be busting up laughing cause it's party time.
All right.
I feel like that's probably...
I'm good. Let's get back to the Titanic.
But that was
that's
all
amazing.
happening on board. This is a
historically
story that
accurate.
the historians will leave out.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you for that, Matt. Thanks for sending that to
They
us.
were just like, literally, the mice were just someone just said, and I agree, the mice were lifted directly from American Tail, stolen, even, and then just the amount of cultural appropriation happening that's just so incorrect in so many ways. Okay, Hannah's going to sleep. I love you, Hannah. Thanks for sticking
Bye,
around
Hannah.
this long.
Thank you. All right, so...
Wait, Tucker still wants to know, do we know how many of those who passed were children?
I can
Tucker
look that
immediately wants to go back to the sad shit,
Yes.
even though we presented you with an insane rapping dog.
I can look that up for you really quick. There's a website that I like that has lots of...
Yeah, anyway, that was from Matt. What was that movie? You were the one who told us about it. It was like The Legend of the Titanic. It's like an Italian children's film about the Titanic, but it's sort of like a Cinderella story. Like I guess it's trying to be.
Oh, wow. I just looked it up. So, according to this website, and who knows, there's a lot of discrepancy over whether how many people were actually on the ship. 2,208 is the best guess that you can make based on the passenger list. There may have been stowaways and all that stuff. So there's always give or take a few with Titanic stuff. But according to this website, children passengers, there were a total of 112 children, and 56 of them died and 56 of them lived. So it was 50%. So that's pretty intense.
I don't want anyone to think I was laughing about the kids
Exactly.
dying while James was talking. I was laughing about people talking about the rapping dog.
I know.
And if it wasn't for the rapping dog on the ship, probably all those kids would have survived.
Well, this is a good thing to...
There were 3 of
in
those
the third
films,
one, an
FYI.
octopus holds the ship together. I love it.
So the ship never sinks in this world, but it tries to 3 times.
So guys, there's lots of bad Titanic content out there. Things I highly recommend if you do want to absorb more Titanic after this evening. Walter Lord's A Night to Remember, the book. You'll hear a lot of the stuff I talked about today in that. The Night to Remember movie that was made soon after is solid. The 1997 James Cameron movie, it's very solid. I mean, there's a lot of exaggeration in it, and Jack and Rose are obviously not real. But yeah, it's a very, very solid recreation of the Titanic. But also, there's a 1996 computer game called Adventure Out of Time. Amazing game. But with that in mind, let's talk about all the things the movie got wrong, shall we? Or do we want to answer questions?
Everyone in the comments is saying that I love dead kids. Pass it on.
This is awful.
Which is so funny. I think the rapping dog made a lot of people realize that it's 3 a.m.
Okay.
Eastern Standard Time.
Feel free to head on to sleep and dream about rapping dogs.
Adventure Out of Time, yes.
Yes, Adventure Out of Time is a great game. Do you want to pull up another question?
Sure. I feel like you had something you wanted to talk about.
No, I'd rather do a question.
Okay. Is this a good one? In what ways is the Titanic related to the Queen Mary ship? Is it related at all?
I mean, you can click on that one. And, I don't know. 2 people.
I don't know. I'm just reading you some of them.
Oh, okay.
What influenced James Cameron to make the movie?
I believe.
Is there a Titanic 2 replica being built by an Aussie millionaire?
I'll talk about all 3 of those real quick. So, the relation to the Queen Mary is little. Oh, this is interesting. So,
the Queen Mary one.
What?
You're doing the Queen Mary one.
Well, I mean, I'm doing all.
Just talk. I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay. So the Queen Mary is a Cunard ship. Cunard is, of course, the company that the Carpathia was built by or was owned by, whatever. And so the Cunard is what saved the Titanic. And then later in life, later on, the White Star Line, which wouldn't really recover from this disaster, would later get bought by the Cunard Line. And so it became Cunard White Star. And then soon after, it just became Cunard again. And so so they're related in some ways. The Queen Mary is considered the last, great ocean liner, kind of the end. Because then airplanes were good enough that people were flying across the country, across the Atlantic Ocean. So the Queen Mary is considered the last great ocean liner. And I've been there. I've been to the outside of it. Never been inside. Apparently, it's very haunted. It's in Long Beach, California, permanently. And so that's that. What was the next one?
I don't. What were the ones there? Well, a lot of people want to know like what the movie got wrong.
Oh, what inspired James Cameron? I don't really know.
Yeah.
I think James Cameron dove to the Titanic because he's rich and was just like, I gotta make a movie or something like that. I forget what it was.
Well, I think it wasn't like because you were saying earlier today it was like Titanic obsessions have come in waves.
Yeah.
And one of them was obviously when
it was discovered.
It was rediscovered in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I would assume that's what made James Cameron.
Yeah, very, very possible that was like, he saw it and was like, oh my gosh, gotta do it. Yeah, I don't know if, I'm sure there's an interview somewhere. I sadly don't know as much about the movie as I do the actual historical event. The next question was really good, though. What was it? The next one we said.
Something about the... Oh, man.
Well, you just pick another one. We'll find it.
Oh, there's a lot of good questions.
Just pick one.
Okay.
Or I could go through them. I could just try and answer them all.
Well, did you say anything about what they got wrong?
That's okay. Pick that one.
Well, that's just something people want to know.
What they got wrong in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and by wrong, I don't mean wrong necessarily. What they chose to exaggerate.
Oh, and Titanic 2. Oh, that's what people want to know.
Oh, yeah. Titanic 2. There are multiple. There's always a Titanic 2 being built, and then they get canceled, and then another one gets started. It's really dumb. The ones right now, there's the Australian one where they're building a cruise ship that has it's the same, it looks like the Titanic, and it's going to look kind of similar on the inside, but they're adding a casino, and it's so fucking stupid. I think that one's
Disney
been...
Cruise!
I think that one's been canceled. But there is one...
canceled.
There is one in China that I think is farther along than any other Titanic replica has been. And they are trying to recreate the entire ship as it looked exactly and dock it permanently in China because apparently the movie Titanic, the 97 movie, is very popular in China. And so it's going to be like a tourist thing. And I will go the second that it is open. Things about the movie, obviously Jack and Rose were not real. And all the characters that they interact with in their family are not real. Actually, that's pretty much it. Like, Jack isn't real. Fabrizio's not real. The Irish guy, Tommy Ryan, I think, he's not real. So there's a bunch of not real people in it. But the bigger things they got wrong are that the gates did not hold back third-class passengers. We talked about that.
Everyone's being funny. Keep talking.
The ship would not have gotten that steep before it broke in half. The car that they have sex in would have been in a crate, and they would not have been able to get into the cargo hold at all, because there's no way into the cargo hold except through the hatch on the top. I've said a couple of these already, but the Rose would not have been able to commit suicide off the back of the ship, because there would have been a crewman standing there. And I'm king of the world and I'm flying are both moments that could not happen because you wouldn't have been allowed to get so close to the railing like that in a cruise space. There's a bunch of stuff like that, but the biggest one, and I love to share this with you all, they are not floating on a door. It is not a door.
This is huge.
This is a big thing. Everyone's like, do you think they both could have fit on the door? They're not on a door. It's a piece of wood. It's actually a replica of a piece of wood that we actually have that was taken from the wreck or floated off from the wreck. And so it is not a door. But that does remind me of a question that someone had. They sent it to us yesterday or today. And it was, did anything float to like the shore? Did any objects float away? And a lot of objects definitely floated away and were seen for weeks, I assume. Boats going by that general area would have seen different objects like deck chairs floating. And the only if they came across a large object, they would have tried to pick it up. But small stuff, Team James is trying so hard. I am. It's tough. But that is the trade-off. This would have been very boring without Katie. So I'm glad she's here having a good time.
Are you talking shit about me?
No. Somebody said Team James is trying so hard, and I'm supportive. I don't know. It was funny. But I said this would have been very boring without you, so I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah.
So I'm answering the question from earlier, did anything float away from the ship and wash up on shore? And there is one thing, and I tried to verify this before this, because I knew this was a story I like to tell, because I read it somewhere. I don't remember where. I cannot verify this necessarily. But Liesl, you were great as well. I saw her little thing.
Jackie, if you want to go to bed, because James will talk all night.
Oh, no,
it's never going to end.
There's 50 people here.
I know, but Jackie said she's invested and she has to wait till the end. And I'm telling her, save yourself. Jackie, get on the lifeboat, okay? Leave. If you want to go to bed, go to bed.
Yeah, I honestly, I have so many stories left. So, yeah. You might forget all this tomorrow, but you had a good time. That's what matters. So, one of the coolest stories in terms of things washing up. So there was a man who was in lifeboat A that it's just so hard. It's so hard
to keep talking.
It's hard. It's hard. You know it's hard. So there is a man who is in lifeboat A. Lifeboat A is one of the collapsibles that they had to get off the officers' quarters. Why those were up on the officers' quarters, I don't fucking know. But they had to get them off. And when they hit the deck, Lifeboat B turned upside down. And Lifeboat A got cracked. And water filled into it once the water came to it. And so everybody in Lifeboat A had water up to their ankles or knees. And a lot of them would experience some frostbite throughout the night. One gentleman died in the middle of the night. And what this lifeboat was doing, and Lifeboat B was doing the same thing, if somebody died, they would toss them overboard to get the boat slightly more out of the water. So this gentleman dies, and he gets tossed overboard.
I'm not dead yet.
So the Carpathia comes and picks up Lifeboat A and all the survivors. And the Carpathia has been taking lifeboats out of the water because you can't just leave boats in the water. But Lifeboat A is so damaged that they decide to sink it and just let it be. So they poke a bunch of holes in Lifeboat A and send it off to sea for it to sink. A couple weeks later, I don't know how long later, Lifeboat A washes up on shore somewhere. It never sinks somehow. And it washes up on shore. And in the bottom of the lifeboat, they find a wedding ring. And the wedding ring they're able to return it to the widow that man belonged to.
That's so
yeah, I don't know how true that is. Gosh, there's so much sensational craziness to the Titanic. I will be Charles Joggin. I am here until the end. All right, James, you'll be you and me at the end of this.
Really? We'll be out.
Well, that's
Whoa.
I love this. That's really funny.
Gilly wrote a note, or Megan wrote a note for Gilly. To whom it may concern, Gilly will be off school today due to emotional trauma concerning the anniversary of the Titanic and the emotional damage caused by the Californian. That's right. Blame all school-related issues from here on out on the Californian.
I have a great question here. I'm sorry, did I miss something? Okay. James Ballard, who told me he's going to be here till the end, he asked a great question. If you know, and I don't really know, I can look it up.
Wine, I think.
What was the instrumentation / number of musicians in the Titanic ship's orchestra? There were 8 total. One was a pianist, And from what I can understand, he would not have been playing to the end because they wouldn't have been able to get a piano outside. But I remember reading somewhere once that he also played a different instrument as well. So maybe he was with... They all died, so they all went down with the ship. I don't know if he was playing with them the whole time or not. If not. The rest, I know there were 2 cellos. I can look this up. It's because this is interesting for all of our music friends.
I just noticed that producer Lisa left all rows and rows of Girl Scout cookies out for us over here.
Amazing. Oh, yeah, she did. Gosh, she's such a great producer.
Producer Lisa, hire her for any show.
Hire her for your future disaster live streams. Disaster streams.
Producer Lisa also was telling me that I need to go to bed because we're going to try to teach ourselves how to golf tomorrow.
We are going to try.
On an abandoned golf
So
course.
I have the list here. So we have a pianist who is 24 years old, so young. A cellist who is 20.
Hot.
A bassist who was 30. He was from Liverpool. That's cool. Bandmaster Wallace Hartley on violin. He was 33, so he was the oldest of the group. A violinist who was 21, a violinist who was 23, and 2 cellists who were both 32. I do know that one of them, so violinist. So one of the violinists, I'm guessing then this guy from Belgium. He's described as a fiddle player in some books. He apparently was not classically trained in any way, and people just liked his energy. He had a strut and a performative quality to him. So they got him for the Titanic, and they would have seeked these guys out because Wallace Hartley was, he was a good band leader. And here's what's crazy about this band, guys, this orchestra. This so the orchestra, they would have been very well trained, apparently, except for this one fiddle violinist, whatever. They would have been so good at this job that, and a lot of you know I play Beatles songs, and I want to have this ability one day. The White Star Line book of music that you could request was very big. There was a couple hundred songs that this band needed to know how to play from memory. But what's crazy is you apparently could open the book and say 64, and then they would have to play the song that you picked. It'd be more commonly, I guess, Wallace Hartley would turn to the guys and say 134, and then they would play that song. So they had to not only know the songs by heart because they didn't play off music, but they also had to know what all their songs were by number, so that way Wallace Hartley could just say the number and boom, they're in. And so there are music books that have all the numbers with it, which is pretty cool. So that's a good amount about the orchestra, which is pretty.
I need to come in with a historical fact. This is a never clickbait time. This is a never before seen photo of what really happened to the Titanic.
Oh God. Oh geez, here it is.
This is never before seen until this live. This is the octopus that caused or saved the Titanic from sinking. Huge. You guys are seeing this is breaking news. Breaking news.
To answer the last question about the orchestra, I think there is. I've had in my possession a facsimile of a White Star Line music book. I don't know if it's, sometimes the stuff like that can be fictionalized versions of that. I don't know how note for note real it is. If anything, it might have been a music book off of a different White Star Liner that's not the Titanic.
I can't believe we're just going to act like the octopus never happened.
It was very funny. How do you get some more questions?
Oh my God.
And sorry to people who are asking questions. I'm getting a lot of messages and I want to go through them.
We're trying. Okay.
I know my one friend Maureen, she asked about lifeboats, and I went in depth about that earlier.
How was the steel weakened in the first place? Was it poorly built in the front?
So that's a big thing. The weakened steel thing is very common in the Titanic community, or in articles you will read that the steel was weak and that it had impurities in it. That is...
steel was a dirty, dirty whore.
Apparently, that is not true at all. The Titanic would have used the best steel that they possibly could have. I guess some rivets were brought up from the ocean floor and tested, and there were impurities in it, but it was steel from 1912. I guess the process wasn't perfect yet. The Titanic sank because it hit a fucking iceberg, and people... They just till the end of time, people will write things like "coal fire," really the reason the Titanic sank.
Octopus,
and that's
really
how clickbait article writers all talk. They all talk like this all the time. Like, you won't believe what this reporter did, and it's like a hot woman reporter, so that way you think like something sexy is gonna. It's so clickbait.
Maybe something would.
Clickbait is the. It's my least favorite thing about mankind. And so, yeah, that's a good question. Do we have another question?
Katie comes alive at night.
Yeah, she does.
I'm a night person.
Oh, my God. Yes, because evident by the fact that we both slept until like
We sleep until like 1 p.m.
All right, how do we exit that? Oh, great.
Wait, someone asked something. Milton
what did I click, though? I clicked on this person. How do you feel about the efforts to restore the Titanic wreck site and even excavate? This is a touchy subject for people, whether we should be going to the wreck at all, because it's a grave site to some people. I think what the official ruling now is, you can take anything you want from the debris field, but anything that's on or in the wreck, you cannot take. And also, you need so much approval, and you have to go through a lot of hoops to go to the wreck. It's not like anybody can go do it. Do people do it all the time? Of course. People are down there all the time illegally stealing things from the wreck. And every time we go down there legally to look at the wreck, more of the ship has deteriorated because people are being awful. Like, someone illegally ripped the bell that Fleet would have rang to notify the iceberg that the iceberg is ahead. Somebody ripped the bell from the mast, causing the entire mast to collapse.
I did it.
So it's tough. But people believe that you should leave all of the artifacts alone because it's a grave site, and to me, that is a little extreme. Because can you put the bell down, please? Oh my fucking God. That was unbearably loud.
It wasn't as loud as the sound of the mast falling down when I ripped it illegally from the Titanic.
There is a ringing in my ear.
Yeah, from the bell.
Because it was so loud.
It was the bell ringing.
I will get an apology one day.
You can't. You already proposed.
So, there's a great video on YouTube that I highly recommend people look up. I feel like you could look up Titanic perfume vials or Titanic perfume, and it should come up. It's like a shaky video of somebody's computer, but it's just beautiful. It's one of the leading Titanic historians and artifact handlers. I don't know what they're called, but his job. Hey, but what are you doing?
Katie has committed theft, claimed the earnest expressed the love of dead children, and rang a bell on James's ear. Liesl is in bed.
So it's a really beautiful video because it's one of the guys who handles the artifacts when they come up. When they come up from the wreck, he analyzes it, obviously tells you what it is, and cleans it and gets it ready to go out on to museums and whatnot. So one day he gets this purse up from the wreck, and inside are these perfume vials that whoever owned this purse would, be dabbing on, to smell nice. And, he explains that every day in the lab, they get Titanic artifacts, and they all smell awful because they've been underwater for 100 years. They smell like mold, they smell like death, and it's not a great smell. And so they open one of the vials, and the smell of flowers and just like this really pretty smell really makes him emotional. And he's crying in the video, and it's just so touching that from this awful, awful disaster and this wreck of just death could come something so beautiful. And pair that with stuff like we opened a man named Howard Irwin. We brought his trunk up from the debris field, and in the trunk was letters that he was writing the woman that he was in love with from home. Her name was Pearl Shuttle, and he was writing letters to her, and she was writing letters to him, and he was keeping all of her postcards on a string to keep them all together. And he had written music in this trunk, and we have that music now, and we have his writings to this woman. Now, he was never on the Titanic. His trunk made it on the Titanic. He did not. It's a very crazy, crazy story.
That's a nightmare I have a lot of, like, my not being ready to get on a plane in time, but my suitcase goes without me.
Yeah.
Or getting off a
That's
bus.
pretty much
or
what
my
happened.
backpack on the bus, and then the bus leaves.
He was supposed to be on it, but he got in a fight the night before and wakes up on a steamer heading towards Egypt. It's quite a story. But Pearl, the love of his life, broke up with him via postcard. And
ahead of her time, an icon actually.
And then he would get back to Buffalo, New York, where he was from, and only to learn that she had died of tuberculosis.
She literally ghosted him.
That is the worst thing you've ever said.
I feel it's actually the best thing I've ever said, and I will tell you why in the following essay. What? So
there are all these wonderful stories that we can learn from bringing people.
Pearl the musical.
Okay,
wow.
Alex is watching. Okay, good. Alex Sayak, my dearest friend, and I, we wrote a musical about Howard Irwin. So there's a lot of love for Howard Irwin, Pearl Shuttle, and Henry Sithall. But all this to say, there's so many wonderful stories that we would not know if we weren't able to take things up from the debris field. I do think we should leave the wreck alone so it lasts as long as it can, but odds are in the next 20 or so years, the wreck will be completely gone, and all that will remain on the ocean floor is like an orange spot. It's just everything will have blown away by then.
Well, people liked my ghosting joke, number one. Number two, they said it made up for like half of my interrupting James tonight. That's rude. I feel like I have been contributing good things all night.
You very much have.
I feel sad now.
No, don't be sad because of one person.
I thought I was being funny.
You've been very funny.
That was like my whole thing. I don't know anything about the Titanic. I'm just here to be funny.
Guys, sound off in the comments if
be
you thought
nice to me.
If you thought Katie has been funny.
I was trying to be funny.
I thought your ghost joke was hysterical. All right.
Who said it was bad?
I was being a straight man. All right. Yes, Vince, Milton Hershey was supposed to be on the Titanic, but he canceled last minute, I think, because he wasn't feeling well.
Thank God, because now we have chocolate.
Why are you ignoring my questions, Liesl? That's a good question. Why don't you answer me? Is Liesl your favorite sister-in-law? Yes. Why? Sorry,
no
Shelby.
laws yet, though.
Why is
Liesl
so cool? How was a Steel Weekend? We did Steel Weekend.
Yeah, go back.
How do you feel about the Titanic being recovered? Okay, we did that. How do you feel about efforts? We did that. Nice picks. Not a question. How do you feel about Milton Hershey? Vince, are you from Hershey, Pennsylvania? What historical Titanic-based book do you recommend the most? Good question. I think it's good to click on it because then they get like a shout out, right? Great question. I've said this many times tonight. The original, the book that started it all in terms of Titanic enthusiasts is A Night to Remember by Walter Lord. You can get an ebook of it. I just bought it myself so I could read it to read up on things for this stream. It's like $9, I think. And it's such a great read. It starts pretty much right when the iceberg hits, which is great. And then it goes through through the sinking, beyond the sinking. And it's a great collection. It's the book that is responsible for pretty much all of the Titanic enthusiasts in the world, because Walter Lord went to every Titanic survivor and interviewed them and compiled these stories. So we owe him a lot, and it's all in this book. The one thing that it's missing is that the ship does not break in half in his book, because he didn't know that's what happened.
Fucking idiot.
Because a lot of people didn't know yet, because this was in the 50s. Another great book.
Wait, quickly, good night, everyone who just told us they are leaving.
Oh, good night, people who are leaving.
Googie is peacing out.
Googie's peacing out. All right, bye, Googs.
Googs, and then ing.8, they said, thanks for answering. Very touchy to preserve history or respect those lost.
Yeah.
I have a quantum mechanics exam tomorrow, so heading off.
Oh, good luck.
You have to break a leg.
Good luck. So
Tucker wants to know if you've seen the National Geographic documentary, and do you recommend it?
I probably have. There's so many Titanic documentaries out there, and they're all essentially the same to me. They're basically new evidence about the Titanic, never seen before. And then for 2 hours, you watch them as they say, but then they discovered something incredible. And then they come back from commercial, and then they build it up again. And they're just teasing you with this idea that they discovered something. And then in the end, they're like, wow, we didn't know that the Titanic sank 3 minutes faster than we thought before. And and half the time the things they discover are things that everybody already assumed. It's just awful.
Well, Tucker says the National Geographic one is with James Cameron, and it's all about if the movie got it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not as interested in the movie. I have seen it. I have seen it. Yeah, and I guess it's good. The fact that James Cameron
is on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I've actually haven't watched on Disney Plus yet, but I remember seeing that it was on. Watch it. I mean, guys, watch every Titanic thing you can. It's fascinating. One day you'll know so much about the Titanic that you'll start to not like stuff about the Titanic, because it's just so filled with inaccuracies and
That's
stuff.
Why I don't pay attention to you, so that I'll never lose my love for the Titanic.
No, yeah. Part of the fun is you get to learn all these crazy things, and then look up if they're real, and by doing so, you'll discover even more cool shit. So watch everything. But to answer that question about books, though, Walter Lord's Night to Remember. Titanic and Illustrated History, Ken Marshall does the paintings for it. Ken Marshall is the leading Titanic illustrator in the world. Look up his work, it's gorgeous, and he helped make this book, Titanic and Illustrated History. It's just a great crash course on the Titanic with beautiful visuals. And then lastly, 1,912 Facts About the Titanic by Lee W. Meredith.
What about the miniseries Blood and Steel, someone asked?
I've tried to watch that so many times, and I always get to the second episode, and then I lose my interest in it. And I really should watch it. Maybe we should watch it together, because it looks really good. I just keep getting bored.
What platform is it on?
I have the DVDs. I got it on DVD. Yeah, I think I have them in New York at our apartment. I've always told myself I gotta sit down and watch it. I think it moves too slow at the beginning for me to really get into it. But it looks good, right?
Ken Marshall, Titanic and Illustrated History.
Yes, that's the book. It's
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, yeah.
Oh, we have Amazon Prime.
Oh,
well, by
Blood
we,
and
I mean
Steel
my
might be on.
parents have it.
Yeah, well, maybe we could watch it. It looks good. I think part of the problem is I don't like the lead actor in it. He looks like they gave him a fake.
It's scripted?
Yeah, no, and it's very well done. It looks really beautiful. I will say that.
Someone says I own a 1912 original. Just should copy the record.
Wow. Oh wow.
Oh my god, we would love that.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see a picture of it or something. I know the book you're talking about though. Or it's the wreck of the Titanic and other. The Titanic and other wrecks or something like that, other shipwrecks.
It's about drama, but involving steel.
So, guys, do you want to let's do one more question, and then I have a couple more stories to go through.
Oh, then let's just do that.
Die before the iceberg hit. No, nobody died before the iceberg hit. The Blood and Steel. So James Cameron going to tell this story next year on a boat and sink it like the Titanic did. Yeah.
I looked through all of these.
Oh, you did these already?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how this works.
How long did it take to build the Titanic?
1909 to 1912, I think. 3-4 years. I think that's right. 1909 sounds right to me. Like, I want to say the keel was laid March 31st, 1909. And if I'm right, I'm going to be very happy with myself. March 31st, 1909. And then I'll go into some of my stories.
Someone said that's correct.
March 31st, 1909! And then it was launched in May of 1911, so about 2 years later.
What day?
What day of the week? What?
Yeah, my birthday.
What's wrong?
My birthday.
Your boyfriend?
My birthday is in May.
Your birthday's in May.
What day? Was it on my birthday?
All right, let's do some more stories for you.
You didn't tell me it was about my birthday. All right, James has more stories now.
Yeah. So here's a crazy story, guys. This is a crazy story about racism on the Titanic.
Oh. 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Oh, should we break?
This should be our last 5 minutes.
And then go to bed?
I mean,
I told you people, I'm in it to win it. You should go to bed, though. I think you should go to bed.
I'm not tired. I'm just... All right. Keep going.
Okay. It's almost 4.
Keep going.
Okay. How about this? Once I get through these stories, we'll answer some more questions, and eventually we'll run out of things to say. So we'll go to bed soon. So there was a restaurant on the Titanic called the a la carte restaurant, and the a la carte, nice. The a la carte restaurant was supposed to be this French restaurant, so naturally they got Italian people to work it, and that was considered authentic enough. And a very well-known Italian restaurateur at the time was brought in with his crew to run the restaurant. And when the Titanic started to sink, somebody with a key who did not trust Italians went to their rooms and locked them all in their rooms for the duration of the sinking. And only 2 of the of that Italian group, and I believe there was like 8 of them, only 2 of them survived because one was dressed like a passenger and they thought that they were just a passenger, and one was in the bathroom when the cabins were all locked. So that's one of the very sad stories coming from the Titanic. I like to think that they busted down the doors and still made a go of it. They did not survive, but I'd like to think that they did not get stuck in their cabins, because also the doors on those cabins are just wood. You could easily... I think they got out. We'll say they got out.
2 minutes remaining.
Okay. Hoffman, Navatril. There was a gentleman on the ship going by the name Hoffman, was his last name, and he had his 2 sons. Lifeboat D, the last one launched, he walked up to it and handed his 2 sons to someone in... His 2 sons, they were both they were like 6 months and a month and a half, or a year and a half. They were very, very young. He handed them to somebody in the boat and walked away. When the kids arrived in New York, no one knew who they belonged to, because the man did not survive. And so they put an ad in the newspaper back in Europe, who do these children belong to? And it turns out their real last name is Navatril, and the man who had them was their father, and he kidnapped them from his estranged wife. Like they had divorced. And he kidnapped his own children and took them on the Titanic, got them into a lifeboat and died, and so they were returned to their rightful mother, which is nice. And they both lived for a while. So, guys, we're going to break because we were about to hit an hour. Go to bed if you'd like. Come back. I think we'll come back one more time. I think.
What if the final part of this whole thing was on James's Instagram and you have to follow him?
Yeah. Okay, let's do that.
At
so you
James
can have your phone back.
Pinka.
So come to my. I'll start a live on mine. We're gonna do. It's at James Pinka. We're putting it in the comments down below. Come to my channel thing, whatever it's called, profile, and I'll start a live, and we'll talk for another hour maybe. If I run out of stories, I'll go to bed. But
I want my phone back. I love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Actually, I wanted to.